Hi there, before we get going, I just wanted to remind you that on my website there are now 4 different online workshops you can join. I've got 3 on-demand workshops which you can join straight away. You get immediate access to all the course content. You can just do them at your own pace. I also have my new Seascapes workshop booking for March next year. I ran it a couple of months ago. The demand was quite high, so I've put on a new date for the spring. Okay, so if you're interested in any of that, please do check out the link that's here on the screen, and let's get on. What I want to talk to you today is about the kind of tools that you can use when you're painting, and think about the tools in a creative way, because a lot of the time I think there's this urge, isn't there, to have the best tools, have the best equipment, the best paints, best surfaces, and you spend a lot of time obsessing about it. If only I had this brush or that brush or this knife or this really beautiful canvas or this beautiful watercolor paper or something like that. These really exquisite materials, and they are beautiful, but you don't really need them. What you need is a creative mind, and sometimes the best tool for the job isn't necessarily the most expensive tool for the job. Those are very different things. Now, I totally get it. I am the worst. If I go to an art shop and I'm looking around and I'm looking at all these beautiful materials, lovely paints, artist quality paints, these lovely handcrafted maybe brushes or something like that, and these beautiful watercolor pads and separate bits of paper, and there's a lot of really nice stuff out there, and there's absolutely no problem with working with any of it. But you don't really need it. I mean, maybe there are specific circumstances where you do need the best materials, but most of the time, for most of us, and certainly for the work that I do, I think it's more important to have the right tool for the job and to make the right mark that you want, to have a piece of equipment, a brush or whatever it is, that's making the mark that you want. Rather than thinking, okay, I've spent 20, 30, 50 pounds on this beautiful brush. That's the brush I'm going to use because it was expensive. That's not necessarily what you need to be doing. If you think you need a particular mark, what you need is the right brush, not necessarily the most expensive brush. So firstly, let's have a look at a couple of scraper type tools, because when I'm doing my larger pieces of work in particular, I like to make a nice broad mark. Now, you can buy expensive tools for this job, scrapers, squeegees, all that kind of thing, but these work absolutely fine for me. And these are just the sort of squeegees that you get for like cleaning a shower or something like that, or for cleaning the windows at home. And they're really good for just making a nice broad mark. If you think about a canvas, this kind of size canvas behind me, you want to make a mark on this surface that really has an impact. You need something that's got a good proportion of that surface to make a mark. So I think I may have even made some of these marks like this, just dragging the paint, probably having the painting flat, horizontal rather than on the wall like this. You can get a really good mark pushing the paint around, and they work absolutely fine. I've got a couple of different ones. This one's quite stiff. It's got quite a stiff edge to it, which is quite nice. And you have to kind of keep them clean when you're doing this. And when I want to work on them, work with them, I'll always have like a wipe or a rag or something, so just get the paint residue off them before it dries, because if the paint dries on there, you just get lots of bumps and uneven surfaces, and you don't get the mark that you want. So yeah, if you look after them, they last quite a long time. They're dirt cheap. I don't know how much that was. It was a couple of pounds or something. Same with this one. This is slightly softer. This has got like a rubber. It's more rubbery. This one, it's a bit softer. Makes a different kind of mark. But again, really cheap, and they work really well, making a nice big bold mark on your painting, particularly when you're working large. Another kind of decorating tool. There's going to be a bit of a common theme here. You'll probably notice that a lot of these materials are decorating materials. But like I said, if it gives you the mark that you want, it's the right tool for the job. This is a metal one, so this is like a metal scraper for doing plaster work and things like that. or for scraping wallpaper off or something. But yeah, again, really nice, stiff mark making tool. Make a really good bold mark with that, scrape the paint around. And actually I use the this kind of sharp edge quite often as well when I'm using this one, to get like a scratching kind of mark. So that works really well. It's got a nice good grip on it and feels good to work with. So yeah, that's a good one. Let's have a look at some brushes. Again, decorating brushes, they're absolutely brilliant, particularly when you want a decent sized brush, a big brush. You get something like this in an art shop. It's going to cost you quite a lot of money to get something that big. And if you just want to make a big mark and you're not too worried about being particularly precise about it, then it's a, you know, it's a good thing to use. Again, you know, just a 2-inch brush, 3-inch brush, 3-inch probably, 3-inch and a 4. Yeah, so they work really well, and you know, you can make a lovely big brush stroke with these. So decorating brushes, they're absolutely fine. It's a paintbrush. Let's face it, you know, you don't have to be too complicated about it. Why not? Just use what you've got, what you can get your hands on. If it makes the right mark, then it's the right tool. Okay, what else have we got? These little paint rollers are rather good as well. You can see I've been using this one recently. This one's got quite a soft roller on it at the moment, and I actually prefer this. This is like a fluffy one, and I'm not so keen on that one, but it makes quite an interesting mark. But I prefer the hard sponge ones that you can get. You can get these little spongy roller heads for these, and they work really well because they're quite flat, and they make a nice even mark across your painting. This one's a bit textured, so if you want a bit of more of a textured mark, you can use something like this. But yeah, I quite like the spongy ones. And actually, I prefer them once they've got a bit of paint built up on them. I was saying about the squeegees, you want to keep them clean. I actually prefer the spongy rollers when they've got a bit of paint on the surface, so they're not quite as absorbent, and they're more like a kind of hard roller, and they give a nice even mark on the painting. Again, a lot of this stuff is for the large paintings. The smaller ones, this is probably too big a mark to make on a small painting, but yeah, but nice. It's a nice mark, and it changes the sort of things that are happening on your surface. You know, if it's not all about brush strokes, it's not all about using a painting knife or drawing tools. You know, these kind of slightly unconventional tools can work really well and changes the look of the painting. And you can move the paint around really nice with these. So yeah, that's a good one. Okay, the last one I want to have a look at is these little paint brushes here. And I do use these a lot on my smaller paintings, as well as my large ones, for a slightly finer mark, because they're you know, on a large scale painting like this is quite a small mark, so they're quite good for that. But you know, they're also good for my smaller paintings. And if you look at something like this is not a finished painting in any way, but it's got some quite nice marks on it. And if you look particularly here, there's these big kind of loopy, bold brush marks here, and I use these brushes for making these kinds of marks. And what's good about this, because they're short, the bristles are really short, it's almost like a stencil brush, and you get these really stiff marks left in the paint. So as I build up the paint surface and let that dry, I make these big bold marks like this and let the brush strokes dry on the surface, and then I can work over them with some thinner paint or even some oil paint afterwards, and it goes into all these little grooves of the brush strokes, and it really adds you know, really interesting texture and liveliness to the paint surface. So these are really good, and I know these look different, these ones, because they've got long bristles on, and they don't work so well with the long bristles. So what I do, I bought these in a pack off Amazon. They were, you know, dirt cheap. You know, they're pretty rubbish really, but what I do with them is I'll get them to look like this. What I'll do is just take a pair of scissors to a brush like this, because the bristles are too long and you can't get the mark. It's too soft a mark. I want a slightly stiffer mark. So you take the bristles off, take them right down so they're like this. And you get this almost stencil-like brush that makes very pronounced brush strokes, which I really like in my paintings when I'm working over them. So just a quick little video there looking at some of these slightly dodgy little tools that I use, because I think it's always good to examine what you're doing, how you're thinking about it. Do I need this tool or that tool? Why am I using this brush or that brush? What is the mark that I'm actually trying to achieve, and what's the best tool to achieve that mark? Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. If you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.